阅同盟会英语，不论找工作、升学或英检，表现更棒。快上
StudioClassroom.com。
现在请收听教学节目。
Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Are streets safer than they were 20 or 30 years ago? Let's find out today. Hi friends, welcome to today's edition of Advanced Studio Classroom. My name is Steve, and for the next 2 days, I'll be your host as we talk about this month's technology article, Automakers Continue to Make Streets Safer. Now, with me in the studio today, we have Ruth. Welcome, Ruth.
Thank you, Steve. I'm glad to be here. I think we're going to talk about cars and safety on the roads, and that is a very interesting subject for me.
It is, and it's a subject I think we all have a little passion about, don't we?
Definitely. I think either we drive or we're people who are around for pedestrians, and we have to watch out for cars.
Yes, and we'll talk more about our passion in a moment. With us also is Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Steve. Good to be here with you today.
So glad you're here because especially I've heard that you're kind of a car guy.
Oh, I love cars. I have a sports car of my own.
Yeah.
I've always been a car aficionado.
That's great. We'll learn more about that as we go through today's lesson. Now, I asked this question at the beginning of the program, are streets safer than they were 20 or 30 years ago? I'm going to ask you two what your opinion is. What do you think? Do you think with the technology that streets are safer, cars are safer? Are there less accidents on the road than there were before?
I don't think there are, simply because the volume of cars has increased so much. Maybe 20 years ago, there were not nearly as many cars on the road, which meant you weren't as likely to hit another one because there weren't that many to hit.
Okay. So the volume has gone up. So
definitely
the rate is about the same.
Probably, more or less, I would guess.
Yeah, what do you think, Mike?
Well, I think with the invention of the seat belt, surely that's had a major effect on deaths. But in terms of actual accidents, I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Maybe there are just as many accidents as there were years ago. But they're definitely trying to do new things to prevent more accidents.
Yeah. I remember as a kid not having to put on a seat belt. That wasn't the law back then. And I remember hearing commercials that, this state trooper would get on the TV and say, I've never unbuckled a dead person. Is that really true, Mike? Do you think that's... seatbelts certainly are better than not wearing them. But
well, in my profession, I see a lot of car accident victims. And it's not foolproof, although it does help because it keeps the person inside the vehicle when there is a collision.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Ruth?
Well, Steve, I can go one step beyond you, because when I was very little, there were no seat belts in cars. They just didn't have them.
Wow.
And so whatever was in the back seat, if you had an accident, would bounce right through the windshield.
Okay.
And I live in the state of Montana, and there's all kinds of signs that say seat belts save lives, but they only save lives if you use them.
Okay. Is it the law in Montana to wear
is.
them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's one safety feature from many, many years ago. And also, I remember growing up as a kid, I remember when that third stoplight in the back of the car was mandated, that they had to be in the window, the back window. Do you remember that? I remember when they weren't in there. And that's supposed to help the people behind you driving see when you brake. It's kind of higher at their eye level. That's probably helped some, I'm sure, right?
That does help some.
Yeah.
Something we overlook also is when I was a young man or a child, most of the dashboards in cars were not padded. They were metal. And so I think that's probably contributed a lot to safety.
Okay. Yeah. And also we hear about airbags today being in cars. So there's a lot of different technology that car manufacturers are trying to put in to keep people safe.
That's what I was just going to say, is that I think as technology develops, car makers are trying to put in more and more features that help keep us safe. But as the same thing with the seatbelt, you have to use them and know how to use them.
Right. All right, friends. Well, I think it's time we get into our lesson today. Let's open our magazines to page 12 and talk about automakers that continue to make streets safer.
Automakers continue to make streets safer. The rollout of new high-tech safety features. There was a time when car safety features consisted of a seatbelt and nothing else. Times have certainly changed. While the seatbelt is still a staple, manufacturers continue to use technology to build safer cars. From blind spot detection to backup cameras, more new cars are offering multiple electronic vehicle safety features as options. Gearing up to save lives. Here are some of the latest safety features that are either standard or available as options in many newer vehicles. Backup cameras. Many vehicles already come standard with backup cameras, and they are available as an aftermarket add-on. The federal government has mandated that backup cameras become standard on 2018 and later models. Backup cameras allow drivers to see behind their cars to eliminate blind spots and prevent drivers from backing into people, animals, property, and other cars.
All right, friends. Well, the deck says the rollout of new high-tech safety features. Let's talk about roll out for a second. This is an interesting little phrase. Ruth, help us with this.
When there is a rollout of something, it means that a manufacturer is making a new product available, and often it happens little by little. It's not all out to everywhere in the country at the same time. The rollout could be a little bit in the north, and then some in the south, and then some in the east. It's the process they use to make a new product available on the market.
Good point. Okay. And so I think automakers, not only are they trying to save lives, but it's good for business, right? I mean, people are interested in having a safe car. Mike, is your car safe?
I would say it has the standard safety features. It does have the airbags, and it has the seat belts. But other than that, it's not even anywhere near in comparison with the cars that are coming out now, the new cars.
I want to talk about what you just said for a second. Standard features versus options, because we're going to see this over and over again in today's lesson. Would you help us? What's the difference between a standard feature and an option?
Well, a standard feature is any kind of feature that comes included in the base price of the car. Any buyer is going to get those features. Seatbelts, of course. Airbags, of course. Optional features are what you're willing to pay extra for, which can be quite expensive, but if it's important to you and the safety of your family, you're going to pay that to have that in your vehicle.
So if you are interested in having a safer car, you might be willing to spend a little extra more money, or maybe a lot of money, right? I'm not sure.
Yes, without a doubt.
What the prices are for these things.
And it probably depends on how new the feature is. Because, for example, cruise control, where you can set the speed of your car and it remains constant, that used to be an optional feature that you paid more for on your car. Nowadays, it's standard.
Yeah. I remember automatic windows being an option, right? Now it's pretty much standard for every car. Well, there was a time when car safety features consisted of a seatbelt and nothing else, and we referred to that time just a moment ago, many, many decades ago. And times have certainly changed, and the seatbelt is still a staple. And let's talk about staple for a second. Ruth?
A staple is something that is very, very important and basic to a certain instance. For example, a seatbelt is a basic safety feature of a car. If you want to talk about staples of a person's diet, they're often like bread and milk or meat or vegetables, something that's very basic, very important.
Okay. Maybe you could say the main part of something. So I like that. Mostly when I hear of staple, it's referring to food. a staple. Corn or rice is a staple food. Yeah.
For example, when I was a child, you didn't get air conditioning automatically in the car. You had to pay extra for it because it was not a staple. But today, every car comes with air conditioning.
Okay.
That has become a staple.
Good point. And in the next paragraph, we see from blind spot detection to backup cameras, more new cars are offering these kinds of features as options. All right, let's talk about blind spot for a second. Blind spot is an area that you cannot see or it's blocked from sight. If you're driving a car, you have a blind spot between what you see in your rear view mirror and your side view mirror, right? You're not going to be able to see exactly everything. Ruth, do you have like a way, is it like 60 degrees behind you, or do you know the...
Well, it actually, it's on your left side, it's on the left side back side. So it's like where your left-hand rear corner of your car is, because you can look in the rear view mirror and it looks clear, and you can look in your side mirror and it looks clear. That's because there could be something in that blind spot. So you have to physically turn your head all the way around to look.
Right. There are some mirrors that have been developed for your rear view you can add on, and it's much wider, and it's you can add a little bubble mirror to your side view, and that helps to detect the blind spots.
Sometimes turning your head to look for that blind spot to see if anything's there could be dangerous if you're driving. So it's always good if you have a spouse or a child in the car, please turn around and look for me.
Yeah.
So that's a very cheap blind spot detection, right?
That's a very cheap
Not electronic.
Not electronic.
That's an option for you if you have a child, but it doesn't come standard. All right, blind spot detection, backup cameras, these are options, as Mike talked about earlier. These are things that maybe don't come standard now, but they will in the future.
I've noticed, Steve, in Cars in America, because I've been looking for a new car, just about all cars that are coming out new today have the backup camera, which I think is a very neat feature to have.
Yes, indeed it is, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Let's talk about aftermarket. This is not part of the text, but I do want to talk about this for a second. There's a little section at the bottom of page 12 talking about aftermarket add-ons. Ruth?
Aftermarket means after you have purchased something, you buy an extra to add on or to use with your car. So in other words, if you buy a car without a backup camera and you want one, you can buy an aftermarket backup camera, which you can install yourself or have someone install it for you.
Right, good. So you may buy a car secondhand, and you want a safety feature that's not in the car, and you can go and buy that aftermarket and add it on yourself.
That's true, you can.
Yep.
One feature I've been looking at in my car that I would like to have that many people buy is called heated seats.
Oh.
If you come from a cold climate, it sure feels good to turn your car on and hop into a heated seat.
Yes.
It's a great feeling.
It
but
is.
you do pay extra for that.
Oh, I'm thinking right now of my dad. He lives up in the Northeast in New England in the wintertime, and he's got that. But one thing he loves, and he keeps talking about it because it's so nice, is he can turn his car on from inside the house and warm it up.
Yeah, that's
Do you have that feature?
the remote start.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is, at least in my neighborhood, is we have a lot of air pollution because of that, is someone will remote start their car for an hour before they drive it.
Oh, is that necessary?
No, it is not necessary. In fact, my husband, who is a real car aficionado, will say that that's very bad for the engine, too.
I would think so.
Because the best way to warm up a car is to start it and then drive it slowly.
Okay.
And allow the fluids to start making their way through all the engine parts.
How much time do you need in Montana to warm up a car so that when you get in it, it's comfortable?
Probably 10 minutes or less.
Yeah, 10 minutes, okay. All right, let's move on then to page 13 at the top and talk about gearing up to save lives. And our author is having fun again here. Some authors love to do this. They love to make puns, and here's a pun, gearing up. One way to interpret this is to prepare for something involved or challenging or difficult. If you're going on a hike or a camping trip, you'd want to gear up and get ready for it. And what's the other meaning behind it?
Well, of course, cars have a lot of moving parts, some of which are called gears. So it's a play on words that means both getting prepared and changing some of the car parts to make them do more amazing things.
Right. Thank you for that, Ruth. Well, here are some of the latest safety features that are either standard or available as options in new vehicles. And the first one is the backup camera. Mike, you talked about this earlier. Would you take us into this paragraph, please?
It says many vehicles already come standard with backup cameras, and they are available as an aftermarket add-on. Our government, the federal government, has mandated that backup cameras become standard by the year 2018 and on all subsequent later models.
Okay, thank you. And of course, the federal government here is referring to the U.S. government. I'm sorry we didn't mention that earlier. This is kind of an article from the U.S. And so the U.S. government has mandated. That's a big word, and it simply means to order. It's like a command, an official command, right?
Yes, from someone in authority to someone with lesser authority. In other words, I cannot mandate the federal government do something because I have no power to do that. Whereas the opposite is true. Someone with authority can mandate, or this can be a verb or a noun, a mandate, or you can mandate something.
Okay, but as a mother, Ruth, you can mandate that your daughter clean her room every day or once a week.
Absolutely.
You have that authority.
Yes,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it will happen, but
True. Well, backup cameras allow drivers to see behind their cars and to eliminate blind spots. And this is, wow, I just remember so many tragic stories in the last 5 years of parents driving over their kids and in these big SUVs, and they don't even know it.
They don't know it.
Yeah. And so to have this in their cars is such a great thing. They can see what's going on behind them. Those things are so big, you can't even see out the back of them. Maybe the mirror is too high and you can't see out the window. They're such big cars.
well, part of the problem too, Steve, is they've made the windows on them smaller, so there's more metal and less glass because they think that is safer. But because the windows are smaller, it makes visibility much more difficult. Of course, if you've got a big car like that, another good safety feature is just to walk around the back of your car before you get in. That way you see if there's a bicycle or a helmet or something on the ground.
Yeah.
But, children move a lot faster than that, so you really have to be careful.
Yeah, I wonder how many dads and moms have just backed up over bicycles and lawn chairs and who knows what else. It's just really nice to have that feature.
Even away from the home, though, Steve, if you're at a shopping center and you're trying to back out of your parking space, there's always oncoming traffic. So it's good to have that feature so you don't bump into somebody and maybe have to go to your insurance company to pay for his damages.
There you go.
Well, what happened to me in that situation was there was a person in the parking space right behind me. Both of us turned around and looked to make sure nobody was moving, and then we both started to back up because we'd done it just the same time. We met in the middle, and we both checked, but, if you'd had the backup camera, you would have noticed the other car was moving, too.
So you bumped each other.
We did.
Not a lot of damage, I would
Not a lot of damage.
Okay.
In fact, I fixed it with a hairdryer. I popped it out myself.
Good for you. Okay. Well, this feature, the backup camera, will be standard. Right now, it's an option, and it will be standard for models in 2018 and later. So that's good. The mandate will ensure that everyone will have this device in their car to create safer driving. All right. Let's stop here for now and go to our next reading on line 10. We'll talk about blind spot protection.
Blind spot protection. Blind spot protection alerts the driver through visual or auditory warnings if a car is in their blind spot on either side of the vehicle. Generally, a light will illuminate on the side view mirror to alert you. If the driver attempts to turn or put their turn signal on while a passing car is in the blind spot, some vehicles issue a separate auditory warning. Forward collision warning. Using sensors, the system alerts drivers if they are too close to a vehicle in front of them so they can brake before impact. This is an option not standard on most vehicles, Steve Koenig, Director of Industry Analysis at the Consumer Technology Association, says. A number of automakers offer that on a full range of vehicles. It's not limited to the upper echelon of cars now. In some cases, it's part of a safety package that may include a more robust airbag.
Okay, blind spot protection. We talked about this a little bit before the reading. It's that area kind of right on your left side in the back part of your car. There could be a driver back there, a car back there that you just can't see. And that's very, very dangerous, especially if you're making a lane change. Ruth, help us, take us into this next paragraph for us.
Well, of course, car makers now are developing the technology for blind spot protection. They want to be able to alert or make the driver aware of something in their blind spot using either a visual warning, which means something you can see, or an auditory warning, something you can hear.
Right. I have been in cars, Mike, maybe you feel the same way, where there are certain warnings going off all the while about your gas is low or your
tire pressure's low.
Yeah. Is that something people... I just want to turn all that stuff off. Do people keep that on? You keep that stuff on?
Well, if your check engine light comes on, it's always good to stop and find out what that's about, because you could burn your engine up. But some of it has to do with the age of the car, and the lights will just come on.
Yeah.
So generally older cars past 100,000 miles, the lights kind of do strange things and come on. And so there's not much you can do about that. You can take to get it checked, and they'll just say, don't worry about it.
But even like now, they have the voices that come on. Your door is ajar. Your door... And I'd like to, if I ever get a car like that, I would just turn all of those things off.
If it's possible to do so.
If it's possible, yes. And I hope it's possible, or else I won't buy the car. Anyway, that's my little soapbox. Okay. Well, generally, a light will illuminate on the side view mirror to alert you. I find that to be helpful, right?
Right. As soon as the light goes on, then you know that there's someone in your blind spot. But, Steve, also I feel that when you're driving a car, you need to pay attention to what is going on around you while you're driving. You can't be listening to music or looking at your cell phone or something. You need to be focused on driving, what I call being an engaged driver. Because if you know who's behind you, then you know that someone is going to be coming up toward you and will be in your blind spot.
That's
you
right.
just have to be aware.
That's right. When I drive, I try to make it a habit to constantly check my mirrors at intervals, just to be aware of my surroundings. If there's a car coming up and then I don't see that car, the next time I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, where did it go? Maybe it's in my blind spot. So just be aware. I like that, Ruth. And another thing that my mother always taught me, and you guys I'm sure have heard this, is being defensive too, and just being aware that there are other people on the road who aren't going to be as diligent and as observant as you are, and you have to be aware that they will be on the road. They're sharing the road with you, and you have to be defensive as well.
So that is probably one of your best safety features, is being a defensive driver.
Right. And I'm very, very fortunate. I haven't had an accident here on a scooter, and I think it might be because of that. I'm just trying always to be aware of what's around me. Okay, if the driver attempts to turn or put their turn signal on with this blind spot protection, then you will get a warning. Let's move on to the next one, forward collision warning. Mike, would you help us with this?
Well, it says using sensors, the system alerts drivers if they are close to a vehicle in front of them so they can brake before impact.
Okay, so this one is kind of in charge of your brakes, right?
Yes. Because a collision means an accident, meaning one thing hits another. So if you're driving and you get too close to the car in front of you and that car suddenly stops, you're going to collide with them.
Right. If you are paying attention, you probably won't need this, but again, it's always nice to have. Again, I'm always reluctant to give power to the machine. Like, I want to be in charge of my brakes. I don't want this car to be. But it could save lives, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. To me, this is one of the more beneficial aspects of these new changes in cars, because oftentimes in a neighborhood, children playing baseball or whatever, or a ball bounces out and they run out into the street and you don't see them. If you have this, it can either warn you to put on your brakes or it can actually stop the car. So, through no fault of your own, it averts an accident.
Yeah, good point. That's a great thing. That happens a lot. Kids playing, ball goes into the street, or animals run into the street. So that could be really helpful. Well, this is an option, this forward collision warning. It's not standard on most vehicles, but it could be in the future. A number of automakers offer it on a full range of vehicles, and it's not limited to the upper echelon of cars now.
That is such I like to say, stuffy term, because an echelon is a higher level of something. Usually people who are rich and who have lots of money and can afford the top-of-the-line vehicle. That's the upper echelon.
Yeah, it's the rich people who can afford those options and have their car. What is it when you have all the options? Can you just...
Fully loaded.
Fully loaded.
Yeah.
Fully loaded. That's right. Well, in some cases, it's part of a safety package that may include a more robust airbag, which means a stronger or better made.
Yes, anytime you talk about something being robust, it's of a higher quality and better.
Yes. Well, these are good things. Blind spot protection, forward collision warning, backup cameras. Some of them will be standard in the future. Some of them will continue to be optional. And we're going to talk a little bit more tomorrow. The first thing we'll look at is lane departure warnings. And so, friends, we hope that you join us for that. We're out of time right now, but please come back tomorrow for day 2 of this technology feature about automakers who continue to make streets safer. Until then, I'm Steve. Have a great day.